Good morning. I'm speaking with Mr. Hasso von Pogrell. He's the managing director of European Bioplastics Association in Berlin, and we're at the European Bioplastics Conference today. Hasso, yesterday you presented the latest data on the bioplastics industry, and you had what seemed to be like good news and a bit of bad news. The good news was it's growing. So can you tell me something about what the most important segments are that are growing? For example, is packaging still important? And how do you see this in the future? Just very briefly.
Well, packaging seems to be always the most or the largest fraction that we have, always somewhere around 50%. So with the overall growth, also packaging will be growing. There's a little bit more distribution in between the other sectors like textiles or automotive sectors, but that's always somewhat balanced between 15 and 20%, somewhere in that range.
And what kind of growth are you predicting through, what was it, 2027?
Yeah, it was a growth rate for 5 years, like 23% each and every year, and it's going to be a rather more or less tripling within the next 5 years.
Well, that sounds great. So, but then you added that this growth was not going to be in Europe. It's going to be in Asia. So what does Asia have that Europe doesn't?
Well, we need to understand we're talking about production capacities, and we're not talking about demand, supply in the different regions. So that's why I said no matter what the legislation in Europe will be, it's not going to really affect that part. So Asia is, of course, for many companies an interesting region to do the production. Of course, it's cheaper, and in some countries you also have some kind of, how do you say, legal, well, maybe not legal, but more kind of subsidies that were given, tax reduction and so on, and that's why a lot of companies produce in Asia.
I would imagine that there would be a better feedstock situation there, perhaps?
And exactly, that's the other reason that you have great quantities of the feedstock that you need in those countries. So this is indeed something that helps you decide to go to Asia.
I understand that. And you then also mentioned the new plastic packaging and waste, not directive, regulation now, yes, which is an important different kind of legal instrument, because there's a big difference between a directive and a regulation. How is this affecting the bioplastics industry?
I'm afraid it's a little bit too early to tell. I mean, like I said yesterday, there was a leaked version out there before a couple of weeks ago, and there compostable plastics, except for a few exceptions, were completely banned. The way it's written now, it's not the case any longer, but there is, at least to my understanding, a gap between the intention of the Commission and what is written down. The intention, I still see a danger for our industry, because I still think they want to ban much of the compostable packaging to be recycled organically, and it has to be recycled mechanically or chemically, and this is an issue. But the wording of the document itself still implies that composting, organic recycling for those materials will still be possible. So there's a gap between intention and what's written down, and this has to be solved in the next year probably.
Well, I guess we're lucky that we're still only talking about proposals.
Yes, exactly. Now we're actually at the starting point. Now the negotiations between the Council and the Parliament will start. There will be loads of amendments being posted. So we have no real idea what the text at the end will eventually look like.
Okay. And one other thing that struck me yesterday was, I believe that it was said that mass balance was not a good way to account for biomass in chemically recycled or other kind of to then create bioplastics. I think that was what was said. Is that true?
I think this issue is very difficult and delicate because if you talk about bio-based content, mass balance is not the right, the right approach, because you cannot claim a real bio-based content of something. But of course, mass balance has its virtue because you need to get the industry to go away from fossil fuels to using renewable material, and especially in very large companies that have factories all over the world, mass balance is a way of calculating the input of biomass in their products. So it has its merits, but it's not something that you can use to make a claim of a bio-based content on a specific item or application.
No, I understand that, but it could be a route towards a defossilization.
Absolutely. This is exactly the case. So we see it more like a transitory step to make sure that people are using more biomass, and eventually that would be the long-term hope we have, that everything will be bio-based, and then there wouldn't be any difference between what is mass balance or what is actually the bio-based content. It would be 100%. That's the long-term goal. But whether I will see to live that, I don't know. Or live to see that, I have no idea.
I hope you do. You've worked so hard to achieve it.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.